This video will describe the Spellout Rules structures dialog, which we see here. Before we look at this, in the previous video I showed you how to build these Spellout rules, and usually when you're building a Spellout rule, specifying the features here is sufficient. We can click on this features button and we can access the features for the word. This is a verb Spellout rule, so here we see the verb features. We have the features for verbs and verb phrases and for clauses, and usually that's sufficient, but sometimes you need to specify a structure. And so if you click on the structures button, you see what we call the Spellout Rules structure dialog, and it begins with a simple verb phrase with a verb. Suppose we want this rule that supplies this circumfix. Suppose we want this rule to apply only if the subject to noun phrase is first mentioned. For example, in this verse, we can say subject and we can say insert word. We'll insert a noun. We can specify features now. This will be a subject. And let's say this rule only applies if the noun in the subject to noun phrase is first mentioned. So we can build this structure. We'll say OK, and now you'll notice that the structures button is in yellow, telling you there is a structure back there. If we save this verse, now this rule will still apply. We'll get the same result. A person pre-walked, because the structure applies. When you build a structure, you can also have the option of saying, if the structure is found, the Spellout rule should not be applied. So we'll check the should not radio button. Now that rule won't apply. So now walk is still walked. This verb Spellout rule didn't apply. Let's go back. Let's say it should. These also have other capabilities. For example, they can delete words. Let's insert this article. See this word article here? We can put an article into this noun phrase, and then down below this table, this grid, tag constituent to be deleted. We'll tag that to be deleted. And we can also say set output features. Let's change the features on the noun from first mention to generic. So the structure dialog has a few capabilities. You can't move anything. You can't insert new constituents here, but you can delete constituents and change their features. If we say now, okay now, when we generate this verse, if we look here, the participant tracking is set to generic, and we can see that features were changed from participant tracking equals first mention to generic by that Spellout rule for verbs that adds the suffix ed. And whenever a constituent is deleted, the history of that word will be moved to the preceding opening clause boundary, whether it's a main clause or subordinate clause. And here, if we look at the history, the word a was deleted by the Spellout rule for verbs, the rule that we just worked on. So usually we just specify these features here, but if that's not sufficient, you can come here and you can build up to 99 structures, and you can, as always, when these structures are executed, TBTA will start with the last one. If you have 10, it will start with the 10th one and work its way forward. And as soon as it finds a structure that matches, first it will look here. If this rule should or should not be applied. If you say should not, then right there it's done, and TBTA will go to the next word. When it finds a structure that matches, if it should be applied, then it will then this rule will apply, and also the few little changes down here that you specify will also be performed, deleting or setting new features. And one more thing, you can also specify trigger words for these Spellout rules. To specify a trigger word, you can select a word, like let's say this word should be triggered by the word walk. That's the verb in the sentence. So now, let's see, does this still apply? Yes. So now this rule will apply. and we get pre-walked. We can specify rules, or not rules, words in here. If we want all of the verbs to apply except this one, then we can say excluded. So now this rule won't apply. And we just get walked. After you've added a word to the trigger word list, whether it's excluded or included, if you want to clear that, you just add that same word again. So if we go to trigger words and select walk again, then it will be removed from the list. And now it's clear. So when you're building the environment for these spellout rules, this applies to simple spellout rules, form selection spellout rules, and table spellout rules. For those three, you'll have the trigger word capability and the structures capability.